Thank you, lady and gentlemen. Full of interest. Any questions from the floor? Any arguments that you may have? Or could we have a microphone down at the front, please? We're looking for your observations. I said to start with, this is a dialogue. If you look at the program, it's a discussion with you, not a Q&A. And our friends can relax. It's part of a discussion. Thank you all for your... There you go. Speak away.
Good morning. Clive Temple, Cranfield University. Following on from Mark, but my question's not necessarily to Mark, primarily for Nigel. And it's what research is there that suggests the attention span of young persons does not sit comfortably with the 2-hour format of F1 Grand Prix? And then as a consequence, would we need to revisit and look at the future for F1 in terms of shorter sprint races?
Okay, the first part of the question, there is a lot of research with regard to the attention span of the millennial or the younger person. And quite interestingly, we carried out a survey actually just probably about 4 months ago in conjunction with Motorsport.com and the FIA and on people's viewing habits. And quite interestingly, the avid Formula One fan was quite happy with the format of an hour and 40 minutes or what have you. But the occasional fan, the drifting in and out fan, which is actually more important in a lot of ways than the avid fan, because the avid fan will always be there, felt that it should be shorter. We did think at the beginning that it was going to be more apparent, because the general trend in sport is to watch less but watch more sport, watch less of one particular sport but more of a change, and that's because you can watch more sport today. It used to be just football or Formula One or Test cricket in England on TV, but now, as I mentioned in my presentation, you can watch WEC, you can watch lacrosse, you can watch other things. So I think the younger generation, whichever category you put it in, the millennials or Generation Z or what have you, are watching more sports for a shorter space of time. There is a little bit of a move to the races, or whether it be football or whether it be Formula One, should be shorter, but not a huge trend towards that. And I think the general opinion, certainly with the organisers of Formula One, Liberty, is that at the moment they're going to leave things as they are. And it's also borne out by the fact that on TV, highlights programmes are watched more than the live race, which again sort of backs up that argument.
Can I add a supplementary question? Were you surprised at the penetration of the word motorsport globally in areas where you would, and I'm looking at China because we have our new China liaison office to announce this afternoon, this penetration where people are a long way from being able to enjoy powerful cars or the driving experience. Is there something in there that says you don't actually have to do it to enjoy it? And why it makes me smile is we don't actually, most of us don't race horses, but lots of people watch them racing horses, seem to enjoy it. So I'm just wondering whether...
Yeah, I mean, participation in sport is, as you say, there are only 20 people or 20, few people who actually participate in Formula One. But yes, it is, and it's pretty amazing. This survey we did, we had 158,000 people reply, which in research terms is ridiculous. I mean, huge. But that's what the motorsport generation or the fans like to do, is to respond. And we were getting, I think we had replies from 80, I think it was 188 countries. I think there are only 208 countries in the world. We actually had 6 replies from Vatican City. So I don't know whether the Pope actually replied. But in answer to your question, yes. I mean, places like Indonesia, not a Formula One, sort of general country, don't have a race, had a driver, which is important. But there were many, and of course, the penetration of Formula One fans is huge in places like Finland. Well, because we've got drivers. So there are lots of reasons, but yes, we were amazed and also general motorsports. People love motorsport around.
Why I'm saying that is if we want to build our business,
build it on those countries.
We can go to countries that follow and are enthused by motorsport, even if there isn't any there. And I just wanted to, I answer that question more often than many. Well, there's no point just going to that market because they're actually very interested in motorsport, and they've got your sales message before you get off the plane because you're coming from the space race. More questions or comments? Here's one.
Yeah, hi. Tim Foster from CMB Automotive Marketing. Another question for Nigel, actually, based on content. Clearly, motorsport and Formula 1 is different from football or baseball or whatever. How does motorsport in general and F1 in particular balance sharing interesting or worthwhile content with the need to retain technical confidentiality or sensitivity?
I mean, yes. I mean, certainly, again, surveys show that there is a huge appetite for behind-the-scenes activities in motorsport for certainly the younger generation again. And I'm talking about the younger generation because they are the future, and we're talking about the future. The avid fan will consume everything, but the younger generation are more interested than most in what happens behind the scene. And what's happening in motorsport now, especially with Liberty, is that they're allowing a lot more content to be shown on not only their nominated channels. And so it's easier, as I said, for the owners of the IP, the teams, to be able to push out more content to different areas. Does that answer your question?
Kind of, I say it's literally the technical aspect on the sensitivity of what we were seeing last year with Lewis Hamilton tweeting a behind-the-scenes image that was quickly.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a balance from secrecy and IP to entertainment, and I think, but there's still a lot of information, a lot of content which can be safely given to the public without giving away trade secrets.
Nigel, I may say that Pat Simmons is coming in later this morning, and he's on Ross Brawn's panel of looking at how the technology can entertain the fans. So we'll continue that line of thinking, and he may be closer to the answer than yourself. Mark, I'm interested in your business strategy. This idea of building a business based on popularity. In other words, you kind of, I don't know the number of people in China that have a car by ratio and therefore enjoy the driving. But I was moved by that computer and how you can easily make complete nonsense of your predictions. So China could be a growing market even though the apparent penetration is low. And are there other industries where that's obvious?
Well, I think in terms of the China situation, I'd pick up on the point Nigel made around esports. And I think we're seeing this sort of blurring between the motorsport and the virtual reality, the way people can engage and use it. It's making it far more accessible. So I think what we're seeing in many sectors is this blurring of industry definitions. At one time we had a mobile phone industry and a computing industry. We don't anymore. And you were saying, Nigel, about sport and entertainment and business. And again, it's the people that see those opportunities in those interactions is where I think the new opportunity.
So you think in the case of China or Indonesia, the technology challenge of motorsport might preview the quality of our guests here today and say we're in that technology business, and then so you can actually persuade them. That's interesting. John Hilton, I know.
Thanks, Chris. Mark and Ros, Mark, I was really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you for that. And on your last slide, you showed us sort of a network, if you like, of different companies working together with the Alibaba, the centre. And it seems to me here we've got this Silverstone cluster with a number of companies that could work in that way, but I haven't really seen us working like that yet. It's kind of lead contractors and subcontractors in the cluster. Not so many projects I can really identify where there are multiple companies collaborating to deliver the primary objective, if you like. And it seems like a really nice next step that could be really successful. I wondered if it was worth, if there's anything we can do to encourage companies to do this, and whether you think it would be successful.
Yeah, I think there are a number of initiatives like the catapults and so on where government is putting some money to develop those kind of collaborations. And there's been some quite interesting coming together of different technologies. So I think that's where often the opportunities lie in seed corning some of those ideas. Yeah.
I would just add, we've got two speakers. We have Innovate UK, Kevin Bourne, which the funding only goes to collaborative ventures. And one of the paybacks that I think Simon Downsell will tell you about signing on for these things is the collaboration is almost worth more than the money that you get to do with it, because suddenly you meet a group of people you've never heard of, you get on with some of them, apparently, and then that moves you forward to the next one. And the other speaker we've got is from the Advanced Propulsion Centre, which is the same kind of funding for business, and they insist on collaboration. So they will, strangely, force people to find not necessarily a cluster, but they'll force people to collaborate. And then some of those collaborations have proved to be enormously valuable, far beyond the original thing. But we've got two good speakers on it later, so you can question again, John. Any other questions from the floor? Somebody at the back? It's like an auction, this is.
Yeah, so,
you know.
So we've got another one from Pro the PR here, and this follows on from Mark Jenkins' presentation, but I guess it's applicable to any of our panellists here. Where do you see the single best opportunities for motorsport and high-performance engineering companies being over the next 5 years?
What shares would you buy? In what?
Could I?
Yeah, of course you can.
In some research we've been doing recently, looking at things like the connected and autonomous vehicle opportunity. I was talking to an entrepreneur up in Manchester who's done some work for Number 10, and he's a young guy and he works in San Jose, and a very interesting guy to talk to. And he said, Ros, we're absolutely gutted that we didn't get the connected and autonomous vehicle test bed in Manchester, because we're up for it. We've got the right kind of companies to deliver. And it's actually been identified as, in your area around Silverstone, Milton Keynes. So if you don't know about that, Google connected autonomous vehicles and you'll see it. And he said the reason that we're so gutted is because it's going to have the same disruptive effect and the same massive effect on culture and lifestyle as the personal computers had. So the change is going into automation and mobility as a service, and the different forms of transport that are going to be coming out. There's going to be a massive play for all of us. I think it's an obvious one. You're already talking about wheels, 4 wheels, but I think the other thing is to just watch out for all these other sectors that are going places. Aeroplanes have been autonomous for a long time. We just don't think about that when we're up in the air for too long. But and I think if you think about things like mobility as a service, you have got to think about sensor technology and big data as well. So I think, I think that's a really big opportunity for this area. And my thoughts, just responding to what John was saying, is I think what you need to do after this conference, from a practical point of view, is just have a little think, maybe over your holidays, about how much time you are investing with networking and keeping up to date with what's going on, little bits of snippets of information, who do you know, who do you need to know, and then make a bit of a plan when you come back from your holiday to start talking to me and Chris, and in getting out at some of these networking events like this one, and then really doing something about it, and not just thinking that was a great buzz, I'm a business in motorsport, but actually thinking, right, how's this going to benefit me? How am I going to take forward and use this information?
It's good advice. You all got an attendance page. Make sure you sit down and tick off all the people you don't know, and all you have to do is call the MIA and we'll make sure you know them. I mean, there is an easier way, and that's it. Go and introduce yourself. But if you don't, that's how you make it work. Mark?
Yeah, I mean, my reaction to the question would be, I think the medical sector has got some very interesting overlaps with motorsport, lightweight materials, the data usage, Ross was talking about big data, wearables and all that kind of thing. I think there's going to be some very interesting opportunities in that space.
Yeah, I'll just speak up. What do they call it? I'll shout out for the fact that we aren't doing anywhere near enough in the automotive world, which kind of touches CAV. I'm stunned every time I get some research done. I've just done a business survey of the UK that say there's 35% of companies are now working with automotive. You're sitting in the middle of the biggest innovation change in the history of transport. Get your share of it. Nobody said it's easy. It's certainly not easy to get into the medical or the aerospace business, the automotive industry are crying out for our innovation, and some of you have got involved. Some of you have made turnovers of millions out of the automotive industry that 2 years ago you never even thought you could get. So grab the opportunities in transport innovation, because they're so close to what you do. And we haven't scratched the surface. And you will hear from other speakers today, there's plenty more to grab. And here's an answer.
Andy Benson, HSBC, just picking up your point there, Chris, about automotive. And I think it's fair to say that the traditional OEMs are having to look wider than their traditional supplier base to be able to deal with the challenges of electrification and connected and autonomous vehicles. And that's a huge opportunity. And I think the point's been made. I've just endorsed that from the conversations we have in the automotive industry.
Yeah, I wonder, is RML in the audience anywhere? I don't know where I saw that. Would you just grab a microphone, because this is your subject, isn't it? Or you feature in this this storyline. I mean, I could say the same with others in the room. I just share with our friends here the journey of a motorsport company and automotive.
Thanks for putting me on the spot, Chris.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So obviously, traditionally as a motorsport business, purely as a race team and a car designer and manufacturer, we saw quite a change in motorsport with less sponsorship and opportunities with larger OEMs. But we recently embraced new technologies, especially the EV sector. And through the addition of our battery manufacturing facility, we're now getting a lot of interest from the OEMs, where they're looking for companies that can be quite innovative, do very fast turnarounds on new projects, on prototype vehicles, especially in emerging markets. So a lot of companies from Asia, for example, where they can put a vehicle into manufacture very quickly, but what they don't have is the know-how and the ability to do that in a short time scale. So they're coming out to companies like us and motorsport companies, they're crying out for the technology and the ability to do that, especially in the short time scales that we're all used to working.
And so please hook up. You now know that RML's in the room. Hear that story, because I'm sure we can go into greater depth, but there are these opportunities that you wouldn't actually think that China would come to Motorsport UK to find innovations, but they do. And that's what I meant by automotive. It's global automotive, not local, to chase. Other questions from the floor, please? Anywhere? Hands up. Anywhere, left to right? No? Okay, well, I just want to pick up on, I also heard some research, not done by your agency, but on a global basis. Was it, I want to say CCM, that came out with some
CSM, yeah.
CSM, some staggering numbers. Now, never believe research, really, is number one, except yours.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the clue who did that.
But it was the size and scale of sports entertainment and penetration. Do you remember any of the numbers?
Yes, indeed. And I think it was, again, there's a lot talked about the younger generation, the millennials, which is very difficult to define, but it's basically anybody who was born within the last 30 years. It's a great opportunity, and I think that going back to what Liberty are doing with Formula One, and it's always bad to bang on about Formula One, but I mean that was in the not the dark ages, but certainly wasn't very looking forward. And what they've done in 6 months and how they've engaged entertainment to sport, which is happening in other sports, and that it's not new. It's just taking motorsport in the next thing. Next era, really. And it's so important because any sport competes with, family situations, going to watch people play on the stage, or going to Tesco's or something like that. So, you've got to capture your share of that time. And we're end of time.
I'm just going to end, Mark, if I can ask you. You're this professor of business strategy. These guys are getting a free consultation, kind of free. What's the last thing you want them to think about for the next 2 to 3 years? The idea here is go home and create a business growth strategy. Give them 1 or 2 tips, just off the top of your head, having heard the debate so far.
Yeah, I guess the key thing I'd say is often in times of struggle and uncertainty, as we're undoubtedly in, businesses can get too inwardly focused. So for me, the key thing is remaining through the kind of things I was suggesting, particularly customers, keeping that external focus as well as dealing with the challenges of running the business.
And KBO?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to thank our panel. Thank you so much.